Frontline is a presentation of the Documentary Consortium.
Last week, thousands of supporters of the African National Congress took to the streets as part of a new mass action campaign by the ANC to try to speed up the peace process. The ANC accuses the government of stalling and not doing enough to stop the violence that has claimed more than 1,000 lives in recent months.
The blood that is flowing through our streets must come to an end.
Tonight on Frontline, the story behind that violence in South Africa's black townships.
One body here, and the second body is there.
Correspondent David Dimbleby examines the political pressures on Nelson Mandela.
Take your guns, your knives, and throw them into the sea.
We are calling on the Klerk not to play games with us. We are fighters.
And the pressures on President de Klerk from his own people.
I'm talking about fighting. Why people are fighters. That is why they are there.
Tonight, the struggle for South Africa.
With funding provided by the financial support of viewers like you. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This is Frontline.
In his first months of freedom after 27 years in jail, Nelson Mandela has spread the hope of a new dawn in South Africa. In London, New York and New Delhi, he enraptures the crowds, a black leader risen as from the dead, who will, they believe, now secure the downfall of the apartheid regime which incarcerated him.
Our first symbol and habitus is to say thank you. Thank you that you chose to care. Dear friends, it will not be long now before we see the end of the apartheid system.
But the effects of 40 years of apartheid are not easily removed. The transition to a new South Africa is proving brutal and bloody. Soweto, the huge black township outside Johannesburg, is now patrolled by the army. Their task to contain the violence that has cost nearly 1,000 lives in the past 4 months. The worst trouble centres on the compounds for migrant workers, the hostels in the heart of the townships. Here Zulus, members of their own Inkatha movement, have clashed with local supporters of Nelson Mandela's African National Congress. With blacks on the threshold of political power, each side is staking out its claim. Ordinary South Africans who were exuberant after Mandela's release now find themselves trapped in the violence. Many of those in the firing line aren't involved in the political struggle. Solimad Lala supports neither the ANC nor Inkatha, but he risks being mixed up in their turmoil every day he goes to work. To the thousands who make the daily journey between Soweto and Johannesburg, this line has become a death trap.
702 Eyewitness News, in touch, in tune and independent. Good evening. At least 24 people are believed to have been killed and up to 50 injured when a group of armed men ran amok on an East Rand commuter train earlier this evening.
There was trouble this morning at the President's Station on the East Rand when men armed with knobkerries boarded a train that had just arrived from Springs. The police liaison officer for the East Rand, Captain
How many people were dead and also could not put a figure on the number injured as bodies were still being found.
Also tied to the shooting incident at Jeppe railway station in which 6 people were shot dead and 12
untold number of wounded and injured.
On his station platform, Solimad Lala saw it happen.
Thursday morning, because I was there when people were running helter-skelter there. I had to board that train where people were jumping off the train, others were running all around the platform there. But I boarded the train. It were just a few of us because we didn't actually know what was happening. We just saw people running away, some of them throwing themselves across the railway lines and doing all those sorts of things, jumping out of train.
And what had happened?
What actually happened now is when we come to see it in the newspaper now, that was Thursday morning. It's that people they don't specify actually where they were hacked, but their bodies were found on the platform at Ikwezi station.
Solly still runs the gauntlet, not knowing how the journey will end.
Anything can happen now. These Inkatha people attack people inside the trains. You never know what the next person is thinking about you, or is he an Inkatha supporter, or whatever it is. You just say thanks God when you get off at the station and come home.
No one expected this level of violence when President de Klerk sat down with Nelson Mandela for the first peace talks. Mandela was offered the prospect of a new South Africa without apartheid and in return agreed to suspend the armed struggle.
The vast majority of South Africans desire the negotiation process aimed at a new constitution to get started in all earnestness. They are opposed to violence, to conflict, to intimidation, and they are reaching out for peaceful and just solutions. Confrontation will get South Africa nowhere. Our joint destiny demands that all of us steer clear of it.
An orgy of violence swept through the Transvaal townships in August. It destroyed hopes of an early settlement. Many suspect white extremists of provoking trouble. There are allegations that the security forces are taking sides. It's brought protest and a threat from the ANC High Command.
We are determined to see this peace process proceed. And we're resisting every effort from the right wing and certain elements of the security forces derailing the peace talks, because this is our initiative. But the government must not rest on its laurels. They must do their duty. Because if we come to the conclusion that they are acting contrary to the letter and spirit of the Groote and Pretoria agreements, then we will have no alternative but to pull out.
The ANC faces formidable problems as it tries to establish its authority.
Yeah, this is the ANC regional office, Johannesburg.
It's been banned from operating in South Africa for 30 years. It lacks cash, offices, and administrative experience. At the headquarters, the heads of local branches sift through applications for their first paid clerical staff. Most of the team at this table served time in jail as ANC activists.
says of himself in terms of administrative skills that he's had fair amount of business experience because his father owned a shop and he was involved in that. He didn't make any suggestion of...
Halima Motlanthe, head of the office, spent 10 years in the infamous prison on Robben Island.
We asked him about whether...
Until February this year, anyone promoting the cause of the ANC risked jail. The ANC is now legal, but the old suspicions linger and they make recruiting difficult.
The unbanning of the ANC doesn't seem to be irreversible. People still accept that with some suspicion that the government may turn around and say, now we are banning the ANC, and all those people who have come to be known as active members of the African National Congress will then be victimized. So there is still that element. Also, given the fact that the state machinery, with its clandestine networks, of harassing, eliminating activists and so on, still in place, that makes people to be a bit cautious.
On the 30th of June this year, ANC activist Mishak Kunene was asked to help marshal an ANC rally in Alexandra Township near Johannesburg. It was his 23rd birthday, but he didn't live to celebrate. After an argument, he was shot dead by a black policeman. The funeral turned into an expression of outrage at harassment by the security forces. But the event underlined one of the ANC's weaknesses. It can mobilize the country's youth, but cannot always control them. The guest of honor at the graveside, Walter Sisulu, one of the ANC's senior statesmen. But it was the youth wing, the comrades, who took over the event. Throughout the years in exile, the ANC called for activists at home to make the country ungovernable. The release of Nelson Mandela and the unbanning of the ANC has unleashed expectations among the young that will not be easily satisfied. It's a problem that local organizers like Halima Motlanthe have to deal with.
One of the things that has actually led to comrades developing, the younger comrades that is, developing in their own direction, or at least one can say some of them, is precisely because, they have come to regard themselves as the only ones who were willing to challenge the state machinery and resist it. And they are a bit contemptuous of all those people who were willing to accept that kind of repression.
Worries about the indiscipline of young people are widespread in the black townships. Zondi, in the heart of Soweto, is a mainly Zulu-speaking area. But you won't find many Inkatha supporters here. Most people, if they follow politics at all, back the ANC. In his backyard, Solimad Lala is chairing a meeting of his local street committee. After prayers led by the local preacher, the topic, as so often, is the children and their education.
Amen. Ngo-9, ngo-10, nango-11, nango-12, nango-3, up and down abazulu abantwana angazi bangena nini emklasini. Nasedrobheni bathola behle benyuke badrobheni angazi ukuthi kwenziwani. Enakho report ebuya esikoleni noma wathi uya esikoleni uthola nothisha abasothi bangobala abantwana bona ngokuba babatreat amathisha kabi.
Umntana form 5 ufuka ifone lapha endlini ufona maybe abangani bamfana wami umkhulu ngesilungu. Hluleka nje noku-answer leyo magama ethu ukuthi hayi ubhuda akekho la endlini ngaphandle. Form 5.
Ikhalo zethu zongalala ebusuku babanga umsindo abantwana lapha yana.
sithole ukuthi manje since khona lenhlanganiso yamabhloko namabhloko esihambe sibamba la sithola ukuthi inempumelelo ngoba akekho kwanamhlanje akekho umuntu okhalayo.
The real job of the committee is to try and put some discipline to the young generation as well as the older generation. With the younger generation is discipline. That's what we are trying to do, to get them to do what we used to.
Do you think Mr. Mandela is listened to? Do they take notice?
No, they do take notice, but most of them doesn't do what Mr. Mandela tells them. The more Mr. Mandela tries to bring them up, is the more they wanted to spoil Mr. Mandela. That's the main point. They don't do the instructions of Mr. Mandela, most of them.
Why is that?
Really, I don't know. Self-control, they control themselves, that's all.
It's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
What will happen?
Oh, if they can't listen to Mr. Mandela, something terrible is going to happen in this Soweto.
What?
Well, we'll die. What will it do? Because if the war is coming and fighting is coming, we'll all die.
4 weeks later, the killing started. 4 bodies, believed to be Zulus, were found on Inhlazane station. As if on a signal, the bloodletting that had already disrupted neighbouring townships engulfed Soweto. It's still not established how the bodies came to be there, but they enraged Zulu hostel dwellers and townspeople alike. As plainclothes police removed the corpses, confrontation was only minutes away. Outside their hostel, Zulu supporters of Inkatha, with spears, knobkerries and razor-sharp pangas, taunt, "You're digging your own graves." Across the railway line, township youths, the comrades, prepare their petrol bombs and their axes. Their battle song, a chant which insults Inkatha leader Mangosuthu Buthelezi, calling him a government spy. This time, the two sides were kept apart by the police. But so far this year, there's been an average of 10 deaths a day in political violence. The migrant compounds are now the focus of hostility and suspicion to the surrounding townships, strongholds from which the ANC says Inkatha launches its attacks. The fighting began 4 years ago in the Zulu home province of Natal. After 4,000 deaths there, it's now spread to the Transvaal. One of Inkatha's leaders, Musa Myeni, accuses the ANC of waging a people's war.
Our people here in the hostels have never provoked anybody outside. They have lived here for many, many years, and they have never attacked anybody. They've been always carrying their traditional weapons, and they've never killed anybody until the unbanning of the ANC, until Mandela came out, and until the People's War was declared on them.
The ANC turn the accusation round. They insist that the hostel dwellers brought the violence to the Transvaal, and that ANC supporters are simply defending themselves against unprovoked attack.
We have appealed to our people to be disciplined and to value peace, because it is their organization that has taken the initiative on the peace process in the country. And we have asked them to support that, and they are doing so. But when they are attacked, what else can they do? They must defend themselves.
The only solution is to go and evict those people from that hostel. Nothing else. That's all.
2 days into Soweto's hostile war, ANC supporters go on the offensive. The strong Inkatha base at Marafi Hostel is the objective. There's no attempt this time by the police to keep the two sides apart. Driven back, a hostile worker re-emerges with a gun. One of the attackers replies in kind. Both sides now have firearms, some homemade, some stolen. In Soweto, the battle lines are clearly drawn between Inkatha and the ANC. In other townships, the fighting becomes tribal, Zulu against Xhosa, the two biggest tribes in confrontation. As the comrades retreat, one of them is shot in the head. Another grisly entry in the statistics of dead and injured. In these battles, the residents of the townships, less well organized than Inkatha, have taken the heaviest casualties. Who's winning this war between Inkatha and the ANC?
Unfortunately, so far, innocent people are dying, but if we count the actual dead, Inkatha has not lost as many.
Do you see it as a battle for survival of Inkatha?
It is not only a battle for survival, but it is also a war to defend certain values and norms adhered to by Inkatha people.
The heartland of Inkatha is the old Zulu Empire in Natal and its new capital, Ulundi. Inkatha claims a membership of nearly 2 million of the 6 million Zulus in South Africa. Their leader, Chief Buthelezi, insists on his right to a place on the national stage. Buthelezi fought for Mandela's release, but the ANC won't forgive his opposition to armed struggle and sanctions and say he now foments violence. He, of course, blames them.
Tragically, it would appear to me that we're not going to see any short-term abatement of the violence that has so marred black dignity in the whole of KwaZulu-Natal. There can be no peace until all parties want peace. The ANC has for many years been and remains a violent organization. We see them thus because this is how we experience them.
Does the ANC want to wipe out Inkatha?
Definitely. Not only Inkatha too. Any person, because they see themselves as the sole representatives of black people. I mean, in every act of violence in this country, the dancing partner, if I may say so, in the violence is always ANC and its supporters.
Is Inkatha never responsible for instigating violence?
Inkatha is now involved in violence because there is revenge violence, there is preemptive violence, and so on. But Inkatha as an organization, we have never, ever, at the level of my position as president or the Central Committee of Inkatha, there's never, ever been any decision to unleash violence against anybody. But our members are now sucked into the violence because the violence has almost become the same as you see in Lebanon or in Northern Ireland. It is almost as endemic as that. So Inkatha are not clean either.
For 4 years, the closely settled hills around Durban have been laid waste. Zulu has fought Zulu in a sometimes inexplicable war. There's a power struggle going on here. The UDF, a close ally of the ANC, is challenging Inkatha. Traditional Zulu leaders defend their position ferociously, and poverty and gangsterism add to the mayhem. Into this mixture has been drawn the Homeland Zulu Police. Consistent reports claim they've sided with Inkatha, or at least have stood by while old scores are settled. In the meantime, 1,000 a year have been killed. What do you say to the accusation that the KwaZulu police are on the side of Inkatha?
It's nonsense, because there have been KwaZulu policemen that were UDF. It's utter rubbish to talk like that.
That they side with Inkatha when there's a dispute, that they help protect Inkatha.
But those are lies. It's just lies. This bunkum, I mean, there have been policemen in KwaZulu that have sided with the UDF, our own policemen, KwaZulu policemen.
Would a better record of prosecution against Inkatha members by the police not change the image that you yourself say they have?
Are you implying that they're not prosecuted? As far as I know, there are some cases in court that are pending. There are some cases that have been tried before. I mean, to put me a question like that is propagandistic in itself, to say, you know, the record, as if, in fact, it's a fact that they're not prosecuted.
It's what the ANC say.
Well, why must everything that ANC says be something from God? Why must it be so?
In February, 2 weeks after his release, Nelson Mandela flew to Durban. There had been hopes that he might hold a joint peace rally with Inkatha, or at least meet Buthelezi, but there was opposition within the ANC. A formal meeting would be giving Buthelezi recognition the ANC didn't think he merited. If I had gone, said Mandela later, they would have throttled me. Instead, the ANC held a rally of its own. It would demonstrate that in the heart of Inkatha territory, the ANC had more appeal than Buthelezi. 100,000 Zulus responded. Mandela brought them a clear message. The time had come for discipline if blacks were to show that they were ready for government. It was the first test of his influence over the young militants. But when he spoke about ending the violence, the reaction was hostile.
My message to those of you involved in this battle of brother against brother is this: take your guns, your knives, and your pangas and throw them into the sea.
Nine months later, the fighting has spread to the Transvaal. Officials of the ANC and Inkatha have met, but there's still no reconciliation between their leaders. This is the reality of the new South Africa. At Hammanskraal Police College in the northern Transvaal, President de Klerk takes the salute at the passing out parade for 1,000 newly qualified black policemen. In the new South Africa, de Klerk has won widespread support among blacks for his promise to abolish apartheid and to share political power. But the honeymoon period is over. As the violence spreads, questions are raised about whether pleas for peace are an adequate response.
What our country needs now is an atmosphere of calm, an atmosphere within which we can proceed in an orderly manner with the current political and constitutional process, so that we can find solutions for the problems which we face. But more than that, so that we can accept the challenge of building a broad consensus for a new South Africa, a South Africa which will be just and fair and prosperous, where all our people will have a place.
Many whites reject de Klerk's vision of a shared South Africa. The Conservative Party rides into Pretoria to protest. Afrikaners predominate at the rally, descendants of the settlers who came here 300 years ago. They say de Klerk has no mandate to unban the ANC and negotiate with Mandela, the man they hate. Among the organisers, the Conservative Party's chief whip, Koos van der Merwe, convinced that the massive protest will stop de Klerk in his tracks.
He will take notice of this. I think if anything is working on his nerves, it's the fact that the people have turned against him. And this is proof of it. The spirit of the people is one of nationalism, Afrikaner nationalism, the love for our own. It is exhibited here today, it is demonstrated. We will not surrender to the ANC. We will live here as a free nation like you people live in Britain. Here is the demonstration.
50,000 had gathered to make their protest, half as many as the organisers had forecast, but still the biggest white political gathering for years, and a direct challenge to the government.
Dames en heren, ik stel aan die woord die hoofdleier en die leier van die Afrikanerdom, Dr. André Strudden.
The Conservative Party leader, André Strudden, talked of war. He invoked earlier liberation struggles of the Afrikaners against the British.
Volksgenoten, die derde vrijheidsstrijd het inderdaad begin. As jy 'n trotse volk verkneg, word opstand teen die reg sy reg. Ons is ernstig. Daar is nie vir ons 'n skip in die hawe om ons hier vandaan weg te vat nie. Hierdie is ons vaderland.
You can say until you're blue in the face that he is breaking the constitutional rules, he has deceived the electorate. But unless you can shift him, unless you can force him to an election, you'll get nowhere, will you?
The way that you do it in a democratic country like yours and mine is the type of action that we've seen today. And eventually, let us jump to a conclusion. Maybe the same will happen in this country as has happened in Romania. In Romania, there was a dictator for 25 years. He knew all the dirty tricks in the book. He didn't want to resign. And at one stage, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 people just walked over him. And if necessary, 500,000 of our people will walk over de Klerk, destroy him, if he doesn't want to come back and give us an election.
The destruction of de Klerk is not proving easy. At a National Party meeting, right-wingers heckle the president.
Die staatspresident het naar vrijheid toe gekomen om te praten en hij gaat vanavond praten. Hij gaat praten.
White divided against white is an old story in South Africa, a struggle at its bitterest when each side believes that his is the best way of protecting white interests. The chairman tries to reason with the audience, but unable to keep control, calls in the police to eject the troublemakers.
Moenie dat blank teen blank op hierdie wyse optree nie. Dit is 'n skande vir die Afrikaner.
De Klerk's pleas fail to restore order. A tear gas grenade thrown by one of the protesters empties the hall. But breaking up meetings only plays into the hands of de Klerk.
Ek wil van elkeen wat vir die konservatiewe party gestem het vra om terug te gaan na sy binnekamer en te vra, is dit die toekoms wat hulle vir Suid-Afrika wil hê?
There are some members of the far right out of reach of de Klerk's words. The AWB is the military wing of conservatism. They claim 50,000 members and they say they act within the law. It's suspected that they take part in violence against blacks under the guise of vigilante action.
Undisciplined force usually creates chaos. I cannot allow that. That's my aim. Train, train, train until they so well disciplined that they can act within the framework of the law and order. If they act outside the framework of law and order, bloody hell, I will kick their asses.
Are people right to be frightened of the militancy of the AWB, of their threat of the use of force?
No, they don't have to be frightened. There's no need to be frightened because they will act within the framework, within the law and order. But if people do attack the AWB, I can promise them they will come up against a tank.
The leader of the AWB is Eugene Terblanche. The skill of this former policeman has been to put Afrikaner rhetoric at the service of racism.
U sal u mense se lewens vashou in die hande in die vorm van 'n handwapen of 'n handgranaat. U hande mag dan nie bewe. Aan die skouer mag u nooit weifel. Die tyd roep en die tyd eis. Dat wat nog swak in u is moet uit. Dat al die vuil en al die sleg uit u gepuur moet word. Want u word geroep tot die hoogste ideaal.
You said in your speech, you will hold people's lives in your hands in the shape of a hand weapon or a hand grenade. Are you trying to provoke white people into taking up arms?
My standpoint and my views are very clear over the years. I said that we will never capitulate. We will never accept an ANC government in my country. We will not run like the colonial whites did in the rest of Africa.
What evidence is there that the AWB has the strength to do the things you're talking about?
Why don't you attend public meetings, big meetings, then you will see that we are drawing the biggest crowds right through South Africa during normal public meetings.
But you're talking about fighting, not people listening to speeches, surely.
Oh, my people are fighters. That is why they are there. Because I'm not a Sunday school teacher. I'm talking about fighting. What the hell do you think I'm doing? I'm busy preparing myself for the revolution. Not a revolution which I will start, but a revolution which my government will and the ANC will start. Because the ANC is not interested in any form of power sharing. What they want from me is my whole country, my land. I'm preparing myself. That's the sole reason for the existence of the AWB. To prepare himself to meet the oncoming revolution of Nelson Mandela.
Over the past 2 years, there's been a spate of bomb attacks on civilian targets. Shops and taxi ranks used by blacks, offices of liberal newspapers and pressure groups. Right-wing organizations, including the AWB, are allegedly behind the violence. Does the AWB approve of the bombing that is going on in this country at the moment?
No, I will never say things like that. All I say is that I can understand it. I know my people, and I know people. Whether they are an Englishman or a Boer, the moment they feel that they are betrayed by their government, they will try to resist it and do something about it.
Is the right wing a serious threat, the far right, I mean?
I think it is a force that we have to reckon with. It is something that is worrying us, and we have to monitor them. If they decide, hopefully they won't, but if they decide to go over to widespread terrorism, then surely it would pose a threat, especially as far as the negotiating process is concerned, because then there would be instability, and if there's instability, we cannot go ahead with our negotiating process, or it will in any case jeopardize the negotiating process.
Take note.
The Soweto riot squad is chosen from the toughest policemen in the force, black and white. Most of the whites are from the Afrikaner working class, a breeding ground for the AWB.
Left hand. Hey.
By the left, quick march. 7:45 last night, a municipal policeman was shot at Marafi station. They robbed him of his shotgun. And then this morning at 10 o'clock, they found another municipal policeman. He was stabbed to death with a knife and robbed of his pistol. So there's two of our enemy out there with firearms. We're working the area, Kladi, Moletsane, Zola 2. There are still barricades in the road there. If you have small groups or groups of people and you want to disperse them, you use your rubber only. Stone throwing, rubber only. If you're attacked with petrol bombs, then you try to apprehend the people, or you use what you normally use. Is that clear?
It is alleged that in the South African police, the SAP, are many members of the AWB. Eugene Terreblanche defends their right to belong.
You must realize that the AWB is a people's movement. It's a movement born out of the love for our country. The same oath which the SAP and the military people is taking is the oath of the AWB, to be true to God and his fatherland and his nation. And more than 85% of the SAP and our military forces are Boer people, Afrikaner people.
You're saying they'll come on your side?
I don't want to discuss it, but everybody knows that we are a people's movement, and our membership exists right through the whole political, economic sphere of South Africa.
At Baragwanath Hospital in Soweto, the latest casualties of the violence fight for their lives. Some are victims of the railway attacks, savagery that's raised the spectre of a shadowy third force, perhaps involving disaffected whites or blacks hired to foment trouble.
He was brought in from Tanzania, unconscious, severe head injury. He's unknown to us. We haven't got a name for him and address, still not identified. Every day we've got some odd number of patients coming in and telling the same story of being attacked by unknown assailants.
What credence do you give to the view that it is being fomented by white right-wing elements who want to cause disruption and trouble?
Theoretically, it seems quite plausible. We don't have any real evidence of that as yet. We are obviously looking for the perpetrators of the recent spate of violence, which was different. There was violence between groups, Zulus in some instances, ANC supporters opposing them, and vice versa. But the murders on the train, that is something different. That is a form of terrorism of some individuals using the general atmosphere and now attacking, not opponents, but attacking innocent passengers, innocent bystanders, shooting from a combi. That is different. And we are looking to find who are the perpetrators. When we find them, we'll know whether there's any truth in the theory or not.
Former government advisor Saint-Pierre Blanche thinks the security forces may be up to their old tricks. He remembers accusations that they backed right-wing Renamo rebels in Mozambique.
You must remember in the old days there was always rumors that the terrorists in Mozambique and other countries got covered support from South Africa. It was always denied, but in the end, certain parts of the defense force undoubtedly supported Renamo and other groups in Mozambique. So in spite of consistent denials from government circles, it is quite possible that certain sections of the police or the defense force is doing this. Perhaps Mr. Flock, the Minister of Police and Law and Order, is not knowing it.
What do you think the motive of this third force you talk about in the Transvaal, creating violence? What is their motive? What are they trying to achieve?
Well, I think firstly, they want to derail the peace process in the country.
To derail the process?
Yes, quite clearly. Secondly, they want to weaken at the ANC because the ANC is emerging as a powerful, disciplined, and organized force.
Are you saying that the third force, which is causing this violence, which you've described, has the backing of the government and the backing of a government that is now deciding to derail the peace process?
We have no direct evidence to that effect. But the failure of the government to take steps to put an end to the violence suggests a measure of implication that they are implicated. And because I am convinced that the government has the capacity to put an end to this violence.
Just across the railway line from a Zulu hostel in Soweto is a squatter camp called Klerk. Early one Sunday, we were told Inkatha had attacked from the hostel. We arrived as the residents were discovering the scale of the carnage.
One body here, and the second body is there, and another two bodies is right at the end there.
And we're right at the end of the camp here, aren't we?
Yes.
So it's completely open ground.
Yeah.
Where did they come then?
They came that other side. They came in that other side.
Last night in the evening, we were in the house. When my husband got outside, I heard something shooting, pa, pa, pa. People in the yard was like police with their long guns. And then I came to the window and see they are away from here. When I see my husband sleeping here, I said, who, my husband?
What do you think's happening? Why should a person be killed like that?
Now, the problem, I haven't got enough information of what exactly happened. But really, I can't say much.
It seems to go on and on and on.
We're just shocked about the whole thing. We're surprised what is going on. And we wonder how long it's going to last.
In another of the tin shacks, there were two dead. One, the son of the man whose body we'd just seen.
Fuck you!
In their anguish, the residents were quick to lay the blame. They said they'd seen the Boers, white policemen, acting in support of Zulus from the hostels, an allegation put to ANC official Halima Motlanthe.
Ke di bone ka mahlo a ka a mabedi. Ba re thunya maburu. Ba re tswa yang se se fikile phumane tsenja.
Mabane bosiu. Ke dira mo purchasing. Mabane bosiu, I'm sure le ka bo something to 11. Ene le maponisa, ene le koloi tse yelo tsa maponisa D2, di ne di ka mo di shebile so. Rona ga me festere mo khona house re shebile so. Kholo thunya maburu.
re ba bone and ha ba thunya so these people ba tlaila ba le mo le mo skanye mo le dimo ba nyonyoba ba tlo jega so ba jigile mo ha o tlo hlaha another one this police ba ya tsamaya ka mahlo ba bone ka mahlo it's a pity ka ba ne le bisi mara ene le maponisa a maburu
9 o'clock in the morning. Into the camp rumbled a contingent of police in heavily armoured vehicles. Not surprisingly, in view of the stories circulating, their arrival met with hostility. A petrol bomb thrown at the feet of the police squad increased the tension. But the police, legally responsible for collecting the 12 murdered bodies, stood their ground. Frank Chikane, head of the South African Council of Churches, was called to negotiate and tried to calm the crowd. He persuaded the police to withdraw. They retreated under a bombardment of petrol bombs and rocks hurled from the back of the crowd. Tear gas and rubber bullets had scattered the comrades, and now Chikane summoned them to a meeting on nearby waste ground.
And so would like to plead with you that the thing that has happened just now around the corner there was really nasty. It is no use you trying to fight those people with stones when they are actually heavily armed, and you throw stones from the back of others and people are on the front line to be shot. And I would like to plead with you, in your anger, don't do things that will create more corpses. Do it in such a way that you will not create corpses around. I think it's of vital importance, and this is what I would like to plead you with. Let's leave those people to remove the corpses, and then with your leadership, you will sit down and work out how you deal with the problem.
Order, comrades.
In the lull, while the meeting was still in progress 100 yards away, the police came back to collect the bodies. The slaughter at Kladi had been a cruel lesson to the comrades. Faced with armed attack, they were unable to defend themselves and their families. While the parents mourned their dead, the young men demanded action from the ANC.
What can the camp do to defend itself?
I think the camp is supposed to get an ammunition. And then I think the leadership must do something about it. We can't get the ammunition without being given by our leaders.
What do you have at the moment to defend yourselves with?
We have some weapons which we have done. Yeah, our self-made weapons. No. And then I don't think I can mention some of the weapons that we have done. Those are our secret weapons.
The ANC have to give the people an ammunition, because hence we have seen that the state is supporting these people like killing innocent people. So I don't see anything that might ANC say. So far there is no time for negotiating, it's time for war.
I want them to stop the talks. I want them to stop the talks, because what makes this violence to go on is these talks. Since the ANC has suspended the armed struggle, those people have started fighting. Now I think if they can just forget about the negotiations and then lift the armed struggle, this thing will come to an end.
So you'd like the talks to stop and the armed struggle to start again?
Sure.
Is the ANC likely to agree to that?
No, I don't know. I don't know how are they going to like what I'm saying.
What can you do about it as the ANC? What are you going to do about what happened here last night, for instance?
Well, one can't give an off-cuff answer to that one. As I say, from here I'm going to Comrade Walter to brief him, and I think the matter is quite serious, and that the ANC must take a stand on this one. If the ANC is not seen to be taking a firm position on this one, no doubt it would cease to be an instrument that was created to defend our people.
The conflict within the ANC about how to respond to violence now reached the very top of the organisation. Nelson Mandela's own position as the hero of black liberation is inviolate, but the decision to suspend the ANC's armed struggle against the government was opposed by his more militant supporters. Faced with the comrades' pleas for arms to defend themselves, Mandela's forced to talk as though the resumption of armed struggle were a serious possibility. If he doesn't, he risks losing their support.
If the government does not carry out its duties, then we will have to consider ways and means of defending our people against these criminal attacks. And if we find that there is no willingness on the part of the government to take effective steps to stop this carnage, then we will have to take a decision which will reverse almost everything that we've done since the beginning of May this year. We have suspended armed action, and this attack against us has now been intensified. And the people say, you have disarmed us. How are we going to defend ourselves? And now the government is not putting an end to this violence, in spite of our appeals that you must do so. Because if you don't, then we are obliged to reconsider our whole decision on the suspension of the armed struggle.
Mandela's criticism owes much to his own problem of keeping the allegiance of the young militants. The funerals of those killed in the township violence are turned into mass political rallies by the ANC. Here are sung the songs and slogans of the ANC's military wing, Mkhonto Wesizwe. Here the angry voice of the comrades is heard at its most strident.
I must warn the planners of the violence in Soweto and in Sebokeng and other areas that this will not turn into black against black violence. It will be turned, if it is not kept now, into an insurrection against the apartheid regime by us. We are saying at the same time that we are calling on the Klerk not to play games with us. We are fighters. Our love for peace is not fear for war. We come from the ranks of Mkhonto Wesizwe. We come from the ranks of the underground structures. We are prepared to fight until the last drop of our blood. Let us tell them, however, that we are a government in waiting. We are going to seize power. That is our power. We will only be able to take that power, comrades, if we organize on the ground and we take the struggle into white areas and everywhere. Amanda! Alushka! Comrade Commander! Tolo Peso! Comrade Commander! Tolo Peso! Kiriwata Wata! Kiriwata! Kiriwata Wata! Kalumba!
Does Mr. Mandela approve of the belligerent language that you use and the way you talk to young people?
I don't think the ANC allows itself to really, does look into the manner in which we present the position to our membership. You know, I know that I am regarded as a militant. I know that the youth are regarded as militants. But the position that I'm putting here, that the ANC has not terminated armed struggle, but has suspended armed action, is correct. And it is the duty of a youth leader like myself to defend my leaders and to go and explain to my people and say to them that it was correct for us to suspend armed action. But in suspending armed action, We haven't suspended the right of our people to defend themselves against vigilante and right-wing and other violence that is conducted among themselves. Because the peace that we want is not the peace that comes with the graveyard, but the peace of our living people in the township.
The peace of the graveyard is often all that's on offer. 2 injured Inkatha men trapped in an ambulance in Soweto are attacked by youths. Stoned by thugs who roam the streets looking for violence.
They actually want these patients, not us, they want these patients.
Who are these patients?
They are from the hostel here.
In another incident filmed by a network news cameraman, a man is set upon by youths who claim he's a Zulu. He's killed almost casually, first stoned and stabbed, and later doused in petrol and burnt to death.
There is evidence on film of comrades in the name of the ANC going to railway stations, attacking combis, asking people whether they're Zulu, and if they are, hacking them to death and setting light to them. That's been seen during this period of violence. What does the ANC say to that?
We have to be very careful about these events. We must assess them correctly. It depends who took the film, what has been left out, the politics of the man who took the film. And you must not look at the behavior of people as an isolated incident. When the residents or any section of the residents retaliates, you have no right to say these are members of the ANC. The people are taking action to defend themselves. And sometimes that action is not the one that we ourselves would recommend. There is a civil war going on in the country. And you can't approach these events from the point of view that these people simply attacked trains, pulled out passengers, hacked them to death as if nothing else has happened. It may be retaliation, and it is, because the people who started this carnage are people from the hostels. And the perception is that these are members of the Zulu tribe. And we are trying to prevent this carnage. We have issued several calls to prevent it.
Faced with the mounting violence, the government finally acted. At the end of September, they ordered Operation Iron Fist, a clampdown on the townships with the hostels cordoned off to prevent attacks, a curfew, and the army putting on a show of force. There was an immediate and dramatic fall in the level of violence, but it had exacted a terrible price.
Should you have acted sooner to end the violence?
We're not only now beginning with our efforts to end the violence. What we've done is we've taken additional powers and additional measures. But throughout my whole term of office, which today is exactly 1 year old, throughout that whole period, there were fairly wide and intensive activities at constantly curbing violence. But the additional measures are needed in the final analysis. In a fairly restricted part of South Africa, although a highly populated part, the image that the whole of South Africa is subject to the violence which was reported in headlines is a wrong image.
Reducing the violence on the streets won't solve the long-term problem. That begins in the township schools. They're often in poor condition, short of books, low on trained teachers, the result of years of neglect by the government. The ANC hasn't helped. Its slogan, "Revolution today, education tomorrow," sounded to the young like an invitation to ignorance.
These children, I think, have been told that they are young lions. They have been taught certain slogans. They can, disrupt easily. They can do anything. They can murder. They can burn. They can do anything disruptive. And this idea of being a young lion, gives them a certain amount of pride, and they are manipulated that way.
The young lions, denied a proper education, have made the schools a focus of their protest. Branding them a product of apartheid, they practice constant disruption. 3 weeks ago, in a Transvaal township, a dispute over whether it was right to take examinations led to 19 members of rival factions being killed.
Is Soweto becoming better or worse?
I think it's getting worse. I think it's getting worse. If you don't have children in school, it means the future of the nation is doomed. It's definitely getting worse, Last year, schools were getting to be normal, but the results were very poor. And this year, schools are not normal. I don't see how results are going to improve. That's why I'm saying it's getting worse.
Through the years of white rule, Dr. Natato Motlana has fought for black freedoms as chairman of the Soweto Civic Association. He's alarmed at the legacy the years of apartheid have bequeathed to the young.
They hang around the streets of South Africa, unemployed, unemployable, untrained, untrainable. And I'm afraid, and I've said so many times publicly, that whatever government we have in power in the next few years is going to have a tremendous problem finding, creating employment opportunities for the millions of young blacks without the necessary skills, even to be trained.
Will there be a threat to a black government?
There will certainly, and I mean most certainly, be a threat to the stability of a black government. And the black government will have to think and think very fast about how to employ the energies of those young people who have been part of the struggle. They've done a wonderful job in mobilizations, demonstrations, and so on and so forth. They've taken the brunt of police brutality. They've shown wonderful bravery. It's not in vain that they've been called the young lions. But those young lions will need to be fed, to be housed, to be clothed, to be educated.
For the moment, the problems facing tomorrow's government aren't top of the agenda for the man in power today. President de Klerk has come to Durban, to the Congress of his ruling National Party, with a challenging proposition.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
His exclusive white party is to be open to all races. He's not expecting a rush of blacks to join, but unless the party is multiracial, he can't seek coalition in future with black parties. It's one way of retaining white influence, if not white control, in the years ahead. And as the killing among rival black political groups continues, de Klerk hopes his offer of coalition will look more attractive.
The new South Africa demands that those who belong together through inner conviction should come together. Die regering en die nasionale party is nie besig om die blankes of die Christelike geloof of enige ander gemeenskapsregte uit te verkoop en is ook nie van plan om dit te doen. Die regering is bereid om mag in Suid-Afrika billik te deel, maar nie om dit oor te gee en apologeties van die toneel te verdwyn.
The government's message is that it's not about to hand over to anybody. Senior politicians are out reassuring white voters that their future is safe with the National Party.
The mere fact that so many people responded for this particular House meeting, I think, is an indication of to what extent people are concerned at the moment. And we accept that people are concerned, and we accept that people have a lot of questions.
Do you really think that the whites will be able to retain a share in the government? Because the track record in South Africa, and in Africa, is that the blacks take over, they become a dictatorship, and even the other groups of blacks don't have any democracy.
I honestly believe that we will end up with a constitution that also makes provision for groups to make themselves felt, not to be dominated.
Now, after a year or two, what stops them from saying, okay, they made all the promises, no, we won't nationalize that, and we won't nationalize that. And after 2-3 years' time, they just nationalize it and they say, we're going for a one-party state.
I don't believe, and it's not our intention, to just hand over power. I don't believe that the ANC will be the government. They might be part of a government, but the ANC, even if we should hand over the country to them on a platter tomorrow, they will not govern this country. They won't be allowed to. That's why the hostels exploded. That's why the hostels exploded. They will not be able to dominate this country.
De Klerk is playing a strong hand. His offer of power sharing has impressed the outside world. The ANC is free to go about its business, but he's doing nothing to make life easy for them. Right-wingers seem a bit less worried than they were. De Klerk hasn't suddenly become a liberal, and white voters are beginning to realize it. De Klerk's trump card is to reassure white voters by offering them a veto over any new constitution.
We have obtained our mandate for power sharing, for an inclusive democracy, affording full rights to all South Africans, irrespective of race or color, on the basis of a promise to the white electorate that fundamental constitutional changes won't be implemented before we give them an opportunity to decide upon it. But I don't think we can stop there. I think that all other sections of the total community in South Africa must also have an opportunity to give their opinion. And I have two goals. The one is I won't do it because I'm bound by this promise against the will of the whites. On the other hand, I also don't want to do it unless a new constitution has the support of the majority of the total of the population. And the two things must be seen in step with each other. If the whites say no, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and continue with negotiation, because there is no other alternative for South Africa than an inclusive democracy with effective protection of minority rights.
One thing that will never happen is that a decision of the overwhelming majority of the people of the country should be vetoed by a small minority. That is what the fight is all about. He will never have that chance. In the first place, de Klerk will never go to the masses of the whites and ask for a mandate, because he cannot get it. He knows it very well. His option is one: to reach an agreement with the ANC speedily, so that when the next election takes place, the Conservative Party and all sections of the right wing will be marginalized. Because if the vote is extended to everybody, then the CP becomes an insignificant factor. That is the alternative that is open to him. He will never go to whites and ask for a mandate because he'll fall.
Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome, 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 welcome.
An important part of de Klerk's strategy now is to win over black opinion. On a visit to Soweto, he's deliberately moving in on Mandela's territory, confident, despite Mandela's skepticism, that his own ground is increasingly secure. If de Klerk can demonstrate to the outside world that he has black support, economic sanctions might be eased, and that in turn would reassure the whites. This is the start of an election campaign for black votes. At best, de Klerk hopes it may keep the National Party in power. At worst, as even his critics concede, it will help buy him time.
The hidden agenda of the National Party is to present itself to the rest of the world with sweet reasonableness and with the strong intention to find a solution as soon as possible. But on the other hand, to prolong this process and be satisfied if it's disrupted, etc., and to show the unreasonableness and the unorganized capabilities of the other groups, to prolong it for 10 years. And if you ask me, I don't think there can be a settlement, if we are lucky, before the second half of this decade.
When Mandela and de Klerk held this meeting in March, optimism was high. Now the mood has changed. When they met 2 weeks ago, the smiles gave way to straight talk. In place of what seemed an informal alliance, Mandela accused the security forces of continuing to stir up trouble. And the government criticised the ANC for not doing enough to prevent the violence, which is already delaying talks on a new constitution.
How damaging to the future of this new South Africa are the present events in this country?
Well, naturally, they are going to cause deep scars, which is going to take a long time to heal. We are going to be faced with the task of lack of trust on the security forces, long after we have established a new South Africa. Because that distrust, that hostility is very intense indeed amongst blacks in this country.
Before the new South Africa can be born, another problem must be solved: hostility between black and black, fueled by Nkata's suspicion that the ANC want to keep negotiations with de Klerk to themselves. With no reconciliation in prospect, Buthelezi feels aggrieved.
As far as they are concerned, the table has only two sides. A side where they are themselves, their delegation is, and the other side where Mr. de Klerk is, and those who agree with Mr. de Klerk.
I have resisted the perception that the solution of this violence depends on a meeting between me and Chief Buthelezi. It doesn't. It depends on the two organizations.
With their political leaders unable to make a truce, the tribal leaders of the Zulus and the Xhosas called a joint peace rally. Zulus from the hostels far outnumbered the Xhosas, most of them from the townships. The king of the Zulus, Goodwill Zwelithini, made a gesture of public reconciliation by coming to meet the paramount chief, Tuta Ndamasi, of the Xhosas. Together they called for an end to the violence which has already shown signs of becoming a tribal war between Zulu and Xhosa. But with their war chants, the Zulus soon took over the rally. The Xhosas withdrew, leaving the Zulus to put on a demonstration clearly aimed as a reminder to the ANC of their strength.
Have they now been taught a lesson?
Well, that you can ask from them. I don't know.
Well, what do you think?
I don't know, really. I wouldn't judge that. But perhaps you can ask them whether they have learned any lessons. I don't know.
Well, have you been trying to teach them a lesson?
No.
Surely we are now implying that I orchestrate the violence.
And are you saying that the lesson that the rest of South Africa and the outside world should realize is that there'll be no settlement and no peace in this country without the Zulus being part of it?
Absolutely. Just said it in very tragic tones, but it's loud and clear that that is the message.
As the Zulus left the peace rally and headed for the railway station, ANC supporters were ready to confront them. The army, expecting trouble, moved in to keep them apart. Another confrontation looked inevitable.
It's coming again, gang. Look there, it's still coming. It's still coming, the fucking father.
The crowd had gathered at Inhlazane station, the scene of the first railway killings and one of the worst flashpoints in Soweto. No one was sure if the army could keep the two groups apart. The train at last arrived. Its passengers, alarmed at the massed Zulus on the platform, fled for their lives. Out of sight, the police riot squad stood by, but the soldiers' low-key approach diffused the tension, and each side went on its way, for once apparently good-humoured. But the army cannot protect South Africa from itself. At best, they can keep an uneasy peace. A lasting solution depends on reconciling political, racial, and tribal differences. The violence this year has revealed the depth of division among the black communities, perhaps encouraged by others who think they'll gain from the confusion. Unless peace is restored, those who eventually achieve power here risk inheriting a wasteland.
Funding for Frontline is provided by the financial support of viewers like you and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Frontline is produced for the Documentary Consortium by WGBH Boston, which is solely responsible for its content. For videocassette information about this program, please write to this address.
This is PBS.
Next time on Frontline.
At the center of this area is a sacred place.
We call it Gesapa, the Black Hills.
100 years ago in South Dakota, the U.S. cavalry killed hundreds of Sioux Indians. It was the last great massacre of the Indian Wars.
Say, how's the engine?
How's the engine?
I didn't want to accept one more day of living in a society that was crushing the culture of our people.
Frontline traces the history of the Sioux struggles to revive their culture, from the militancy of the 1970s to political attempts to regain the Black Hills.
The United States, in effect, stands prepared to pay to the Sioux Indians over $100 million for that wrongful taking.
In the words of Crazy Horse, one does not sell the land on which the people walk.
The spirit of Crazy Horse. Next time on Frontline.
I am sending a signal. We are deadly serious.
In the new year, Frontline intensifies its commitment to timely investigative reporting.
It is a serious effort to try and find a peaceful resolution.
Examining the decisions that took American soldiers to the brink of war in the Middle East. And investigating the murder of arms dealer Gerald Bull. What did the U.S. know about his secret dealings with Saddam Hussein? And 10 years after the release of American hostages in Tehran, Frontline investigates how both presidents, Carter and Reagan, may have tried to forge secret deals for their release. Meanwhile, in Latin America, Frontline exposes the history of Fidel Castro's connection to the drug trade and returns to Panama in the aftermath of the invasion to continue reporting the saga of Manuel Noriega. Can the U.S. prove its case against him? At home, we examine the nursing home crisis. Who will pay for our old age? And who will protect children from abuse? Who killed 5-year-old Adam Mann? Important stories. Powerful television. The issues of our times. Next year on Frontline.
For a printed transcript of this or any Frontline program, send $5 to Frontline Transcripts, Journal Graphics Incorporated, 267 Broadway, New York, New York, 10007. To order by credit card, call 212-227-READ. Please specify program subject and date.